it's time to get busy with football. Hopefully you had a chance to review the 2 PowerPoints dealing with pre-snap routine and then also dead ball. 2 very important parts of what we do. Let me just say that rather than going through the highlights of the PowerPoint, let me just mention that if we do a good job after the play is over with going through all of our responsibilities, and we're very faithful to that process, we start to play with a much better chance of succeeding as opposed to rushing through things. And what I have tonight is a number of play clips that are intended to illustrate the points on contained within the PowerPoint. This is obviously a punt formation. The first thing we should notice is that we're fairly near midfield. So we're going to consider down and distance here. And what we're going to get is a punt attempt. Now, rather than having you count, I will just tell you that you have 11 players up here in the box. So what this is intended to do is to illustrate from a deep 3 perspective that we need to get back set up in our punt mechanic positions as early as we can after we finish our dead ball responsibilities of the previous play. And we need to be in the process of counting players, in this case, counting B players. So simple deduction here, if you have 11 up front, that means we better not have a kick returner deep. Now, the screen will never show the kick returner deep, but as you will see, go ahead and run it. This is going to be an unfortunate situation for Team B because they're going to come up, they're going to block this kick. The kick goes out of bounds. Not that that is a big deal because it certainly does not threaten the line of scrimmage. But anyway, we've got a block kick. Now, you'll notice that our wingman on that side of the field is a little slow getting back to the spot. Now, that's not particularly a big deal here because the spot is not critical. We're going to put it on a yard line anyway. However, what you're going to see is that the deep 3 recognized that they had a 11 up front and 1 back. So Team B played with 12 players, illegal substitution. This is a 5-yard foul, which the referee does a nice job of identifying. The thing that we cannot do is to miss having 12 on the field at any point, but particularly in a big play situation like this, what this would have represented. So we need to confirm back there that everybody's got 12. Everyone's got 12. And at the snap, then this becomes a foul. All right, next clip. All right, a little different scrimmage kick situation on this next one. All right, now this is early in the game. This is clip like 2020. Now it's 4th down. Let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning of the play. All right, so we're over midfield. So we're snapping from about the 46, but you can see it's 4th and about 16. Line to gain is at the 30. All right, now you don't have a traditional punt formation. So in addition to some scrimmage kick rules that don't apply because they're not in that position, we need to be alert to the fact that this may or may not be a kick. And here you'll see that the quarterback or the player who receives the snap, well, first of all, when you notice that guy that is typically your quarterback backs up beyond the spot where he typically would occupy, that should be a big indication to you what potentially is coming. But until Team A commits to kicking the ball, we have to treat this as a regular play from scrimmage. Now, deep 3, whether you have a kick returner back there or not, what I would say to you is rather than staying at 22 to 24, when you have a situation like this, I would suggest that you back up another 5 yards anyway, maybe a little bit more depending on the situation, so that you can defend the goal line if necessary. All right, so the snap goes. And you can see, if you watch here, the player that receives the snap gets out here and he's really reading to see how the defense responds to those players being out in the side zone. And if he'd gotten a different reaction, he might have either run or thrown the ball out of that formation. The linemen do not leave the line of scrimmage, so we're not going to have ineligibles downfield. He either by distance or the fact he didn't get the defense that he wanted, he went ahead and kicked. And you can see that the deep wing at the top of the screen is a little bit in scramble mode. Now it works out okay. We get a favorable bounce here from the standpoint of this not bouncing directly at the pylon. But you can see we're on the run. The back judge does a nice job getting back to the goal line, which is helpful. But we have to be alert to that. And we have to recognize that this may be a play from scrimmage. And if we're a little extra deep, that's not going to be a problem if they throw. Shoot, we take plays all the time that are further away from us than they would be if you backed up an additional 5 to 7 yards. So that really isn't a problem. All right, so recognizing down distance, play situation, those are things that we have to factor in as we're preparing for a particular play. This one goes out at about the 3. All right, let's jump ahead now. Now here, trips to the bottom of the screen. You will notice if you look at the top of the screen, run it back for just a minute. This is what I'm getting to here. If we go back, Gregor, to the top of the screen. All right, now notice where the front stake is and the guy that's holding that. Now, that does not give our deep wing a clear shot at this. So one of the things that you need to do as you're getting ready for your respective games, when you're meeting with the chain crew and when you're talking with your short wing, on both of your short wings, we need to make sure that particularly when we get this close to the goal line, that our chain crew needs to operate from the limit line. Now, if stadiums don't permit it, then what you need to do is to instruct whoever has the front stake to understand that they may need to bend it down so that the deep wing can see over it. They may need to drop it. There are a number of things that can be done here, but deep wing, do not allow yourself to get straight lined in situations like this. And as you will see, the deep wing eventually steps up closer to the goal line so that he can see what's taking place. But we want to try to prevent this with our work with our chain crew prior to the game. All right, that's really the purpose of that particular slide. So let's go to the next one in the interest of time. All right, now this is a similar situation. We've got second half. Now you can see the deep wing is instructing the guy on the front stick to back up, and you will see, if you'll play it just a few more frames, that he does back up. Now, in some of our venues, we have the orange rug thing that sits on the turf at the forward progress spot. That would be very helpful in a situation like this, but you can see he does move back and we do get a slight adjustment. I'm okay with that. Here's the thing that I would say to you though, is when the snap goes, back up to where you know you need to be, okay? There, just because you move forward because you have something in your way doesn't mean you can retreat to this position where you really should be. But the big thing is, regardless of whether you move forward, you don't move forward, is that you cannot be straight lined by game personnel, in this particular case, the front stake. Okay, next clip. All right, now you can fast forward that a little bit. This is going to be a 2-play combination. What we're going to get is we're going to get a long gain that's going to come up the field. It's going to be a completed catch towards the bottom of the screen. Now, if we were talking mechanics, I would say that our deep wing got a late start and really did not have what I would consider to be the proper cushion here to be able to see through these players. It turns out okay, but that's where he should have been and situated. The back judge was on about the right plane. Now, the problem that we're going to have here is the back judge comes up and wants to spot this ball. Now, team A is going to want to go quickly. They just made a big play. They've got the defense back on their heels. They want to go quickly. Now, back judges, if you want to spot the ball, find a crew or on your crew, have somebody switch with you so that you can be an umpire. We don't need you to spot the ball. We've got a person very qualified to handle that. So stay back. That receiver will bring the ball to the hash and the umpire will get there. Now there, the umpire needs to probably get started a little quicker, but still, let's not put ourselves in jeopardy. And as you'll see on the next clip, why this becomes important. Go ahead to the next clip. You should have 12 in there. Maybe that's not there. All right, what happened? I'll tell you in the interest of time so we don't have to look for it. Team A came up there. Referee made the ball ready for play. Now, that in and of itself is a problem. Referees do not make the ball ready for play until your crew is in position to officiate the play. Okay, there we go. You can see the back judge is on the run here. There's no way he can officiate. The deep wing at the top is backing up. The umpires, he doesn't even get to his position before this snap goes. We are not, look at the deep wing at the top of the screen. We're not ready to officiate. Now, in this particular case, we lucked out because team A false starts. But we were not ready for this play. So the takeaway here, back judges, is whether time is of the essence or not, stay out of forward progress, get back, stay back where you need to be, and perform the duties that we need you to perform. There's no way that any of these three, particularly the back judge, could have told you how many team B players were on the field. We are totally in scramble mode. We are totally at the mercy of team A when we allow and when we finish a play the way it was finished here. And not to pick on this referee, he's a very fine individual. By the way, it's a good time for me to say that when we look at these plays, you may be on some of these clips. And if we're looking at ways to improve, that's not meant to be personal. It's meant to be for the betterment of the whole group. I would say that the referee needs to be aware of his crew being set to go before we get to the point where we're making that ball ready for play. And in your pregame with quarterbacks and snappers, we need to make it clear that they cannot snap until the umpire is out of there and set. But that's another kettle of fish. All right, next clip. First of all, this is not a PAT. We're snapping from the 5. We're snapping from the 5. Now, in this particular case, this is a field goal to potentially put Team A ahead late in the game. Now, as a crew, we need to be thinking ahead and recognize time, score, and situation. If Team B has any trickery, if they have something they practiced or thought of after a timeout, like trying to get the offense to false start or any sort of pull and shoot, this is when they're going to go for it. Now, we do have the side judge in there, but notice that the side judge is not on the strong side of the formation. He's on the weak side of the formation. He should be over here with the 4 players that are down or standing near the line, which would be on the offense's left side. We're over here on the weak side. If they're going to try to pull something like a pull and shoot, it's going to come from the strong side and usually will come from the open side of the kicker and the holder. So side judge should be over. All right, now the other part of this is we have to remember that this is a scrimmage kick by rule. This is not a PAT where we know when it's clear that the PAT is not going to be successful, we get on the whistle and we blow it dead. So this kick gets blocked. And the first thing we need to determine is who recovers the ball. In this particular case, it's recovered by Team A. And then the next thing needs to be, where is it recovered? It's recovered behind the line. So we know a scrimmage kick can be advanced by Team A if they recover it but beyond the line. So from a line of scrimmage point of view, when this happens, once you determine that the recovery is legal, you need to get to the goal line, because the only line that's going to matter now is that goal line. So we need to break it and get over there, goal line extended, so that we can make a determination in case we have a diamond cutter at the corner. All right, time, score, and situation. All right, next. Now, as it turned out, that was not a huge play, but I was giving you the scenario. Let's say it was. All right, now another communication piece that's part of pre-snap. Deep three. Let me just say to you that in terms of making determinations of whether a scoring kick is successful or not, there are only two words that you use deep. One is yes, and one is no. It's not yes, it's good, or no, it's no good. We use two words. We keep it as simple as possible. Here's the poster child for it. This is going to threaten the upright closest to the left side of the screen. So obviously, and I believe that's the back judge, is going to make the determination that it's outside. He signals no good, but that message did not get communicated to the deep wing opposite him. He comes out, rings it. All right. Now, is it a major deal? No, it just doesn't make us look very sharp. So we need to get back there, get set, and communicate what we're going to do. Yes means that the kick is successful. No means that we're both going to signal no good. All right, next clip. All right, now let's look at this formation. You've got trips to the top of the screen. Now, eventually they're going to get into a legal situation here, because right now they've got 5 backs. This guy's going to step up eventually and figure out, I need to be on the line. All right, now stop. Now, by formation, if you are the deep wing on the bottom of the screen, you need to look at this and say, all right, they got trips to the wide side. This is one-on-one coverage for the defensive back and this wide receiver at the bottom of the screen. Now, he's not pressing the receiver, which is advantageous to him. But as you're going to see, what Team A is saying is our receiver is a better athlete than your defensive back. We can't be surprised when this turns into a fade pattern by formation. Okay, let it go. Now, the quarterback quickly looks to the trip side of the field with the whole idea of making, watch the safety that's on the hash mark. When the quarterback looks to his left, what does he do? He's playing the eyes of the quarterback, and he starts towards the trip side of the formation. That takes him out of the play. This means that that defensive back is all by his lonesome here. Now, because he wasn't in press coverage, he's got a lot better chance to cover this pattern, but you can see that he does get beat. There's a little bit of hand contact there, but certainly nothing that would cause us to feel that this is a foul. Our deep wing on this side really did not have a good look at this. If you run that back a few frames, what you're going to see is that the defensive back and the receiver are on the same plane as the deep wing. All right. Now, right now he's in pretty good shape, but he sort of slows down here instead of continuing to go. If he's another 3 to 5 yards ahead of that, like maybe right at the goal line, he's got a really great look to look through all of those players. Okay, next clip. Sometimes you get a deep pattern that comes out of a different sort of formation. This is called a wheel route. And the guy that runs deep is actually the second or the third guy in. Now, I think what happened here is that our deep wing, it's early in the game, he's saying, Rich told me that I've got the widest guy and I've got to be alert when he slants towards the middle of the field. And he's correct. I did say that. But you can't totally lose track of other people that are also in the formation. And you can see that this guy runs clear. The defense isn't ready for it. We're not ready for it either. And now we're going to get beat by several yards. Now, sometimes we get beat even when we perform mechanics correctly. because they're so much faster than we are. And the play is going from a long distance way up the field compared to closer to the goal line. But the point is, we've got to see not only our key, but we've also got to be aware of other receivers that are in the proximity, and react and maintain our distance based on the guy that represents the deepest threat. Okay, next clip. Sometimes a fade route comes out of a double move, and that's what is going to be illustrated here with this next clip, hopefully. Now, I was at this game, and the purple team was just running it right down the throats of the defense. 5, 7 yards every play. So what happens? Well, they do a little double move. Defensive backs aren't ready, and we get the double move fade route, and he gets lucky. He breaks us up. But you can see back judge is in really nice position, but our deep wing at the bottom of the screen took the bait right along with the defense. This is not well covered. We've got to get back. I would say at a minimum, our deep wing should have been at the 5. Back judge is in primo position. He has a chance to look through all of that. Now, let me say one more thing. We're not going to talk about quality fouls for a couple of weeks, but what you don't want to do is, if you do make a mistake and you do get beat, don't guess. Please don't guess. Count on the fact and have confidence in your back judge that if we need one, he or she will throw it. Do not guess. And then if you have the misfortune where you think something happens and the back judge comes to you and says, Rich, you're not going to like that foul, be smart enough to pick up your flag. All right, next clip. See, we got to be thinking time score situation. We can't allow ourselves to get lulled into, well, I guess I'm not going to have much action today, at least when they have the ball. Right now here, we do a nice job from a deep wing perspective. We cover this play pretty well. The mistake that we're going to make is that we want to come back and take this spot. Stay out of that spot. Stay back, supervise players. Check your game clock to make sure that it got stopped for a first down. You might check your play clock. There are lots of things that we need to do. We'll wait for the line of scrimmage person to come down and spot this ball. Now, you can always suggest that Mike put this ball on the 27, wherever it happens to be. You can help them verbally with a spot. But let's not think that we need to come back and take them. And it's not so much that it's going to be a hurry up where we can't cover it like the previous play. It's going to be that we're not performing other functions like clock awareness, game clock, play clock, substitutions. There are a number of things that if we stay faithful to our pre-snap and our dead ball responsibilities, the crew will be better off. We get nothing from having our deeps come back and spot this ball. There's no advantage. Now, that being said, let's say your line of scrimmage guy gets knocked down at the line of scrimmage and is really, really late coming back. Okay, I could accept that as a reason to come up and take the spot. Let's just not be so anxious to take it. All right, next clip. All right, now this is going to look like a fade route to the bottom of the screen, and it is, but what I want you to notice is the camera guy that is much too close to the sideline, and watch what our deep wing has to do to officiate this play. He had to run around 2 people that didn't belong where they were. He's where he needs to be. You can see you got 2 people that would be inside of the limit line. Now, if you remember from the PowerPoint, theoretically, before every snap, you should take a peek over your shoulder, particularly if you have the time, to make sure that the area behind you is clear so that we don't have these kinds of situations. That camera guy, that camera can pick a gnat off a fly's rear end. That he does not have to be that close to the field to get a good shot. He can certainly be behind what would be our limit line. Don't allow that to happen. You're just buying yourself trouble and potentially getting hurt. We definitely don't want you hurt. All right, next. All right, so moving along, time score situation at second and about 5, we're near the goal line. Our deep wings are starting at goal line extended. We should have communicated to our deep wing, you know, I'm on the goal line. You've got it to the 2. We start talking, we should be talking early on, but especially as when we get this close to the goal line, we need to have communication between the deep wing and the short wing in terms of reminding who is going to take what. Now, as the deep wing, if we have one that's really, really close, whether it's at the 2 or inside the 2, take charge of it. My spot, your spot, it's outside the 2. Put it on the 3, but make sure you're communicating as this play develops as we're coming down the field. All right, let it run, Gregor. I know that particular play ended fairly innocently. Now, the point that I want to make here is that this play ends, this morphs a little bit into dead ball mechanics, but you can see that this is a low impact tackle. Just not a lot going on there. They clear pretty quickly. So as a deep wing, what you need to do is to hold your spot and observe the players around the dead ball spot, and then also look back into the, into the field. We don't need you charging up. Now, you may have noticed that at the snap, our deep wing took off and left the goal line. There's the only line that you need to be concerned with when you start at the goal. Well, I need to correct myself. On plays like this, the only time you're going to move off of the goal line is on a pass pattern that takes the receiver to the back third of the end zone. So there's no need to back off of our goal line. Every play, you need to know where the goal line is. And one of the reasons why I have you start at the goal line whenever possible is so you don't have to find it. You don't need to think about it. You're there, and you know that the only reason why you're going to move off of that goal line is if a pass takes you to the deep third of the end zone. All right, next clip. Time scoring situation. This is a 4th down play. So we know we should have a good idea that this is going to need to go to, I believe, the 12 is the line to gain. Even though we're not going to be involved in the dead ball spot, we need to be aware generally where it is. Now you can see that we've got potential blocks. This guy goes out of bounds. He does not leave his feet. But we're going to be very, very aware of this action out of bounds as a deep wing at the bottom of the screen. All right. Here again, there isn't a whole lot going on, so there's not a lot for us to do. But we need to keep our vision wide to make sure that we don't have players coming that are going to do something that is going to hurt them and also the game. Now, I'm sure you realize that after the ball is dead, if we do have a foul, such as a late hit out of bounds or a UNS, that the series is ended. So now we're going to have team B with a first down, and if the foul is on them, or A for that matter, then we're going to enforce the foul from the beginning of the new series. So in this particular case, looks like he goes out of bounds at the 18. So if there was a foul by team B, it still would be their ball. And then we would enforce the dead ball foul back to the 9, and their series would begin at that particular point. All right, a couple more, and then we're going to move on to our dead ball mechanics. All right, now let's look at stop the clock or stop the video here. Let's analyze what we have here. Offenses intentionally by design are trying to fool the defense. How many backs do you see right now? You should see 4. You should see 2 upright slot backs, one on each side of the formation, the quarterback and a running back. Now, in addition to that, you will see the player that we typically recognize as the tight end is standing up. There's only one way for this formation to be legal, and that is that the tight end is ineligible. Now, what the offense is trying to do is to have the defense guard this tight end, commit someone to him, which then will help them free up someone else. We have to be aware of that formation. Now, you may be suspicious of this downfield, one of the deep 3. You're probably not going to know for sure. At the end of the play, you may need to come in and say, hey, was the tight end 88 an eligible receiver? Now, if he gets fouled, if he goes downfield and he gets fouled, let's say he's interfered with or he's held, whatever it might happen to be, you're still going to throw your flag and then we'll sort it out. Now, we know that an ineligible player cannot be interfered with. So it may be that we would pick up a flag because of ineligible position, but you're going to officiate it as if he is eligible. But then at the end of the play, we'll have to sort it out to figure out what we're going to do with it. All right. So typically in unbalanced formations like this, we end up with running plays. And that's what happens here is this turns out simply to be a running play that's not very successful. But certainly if they had thrown the ball, particularly if he went downfield, we should really have a flag down for an eligible downfield. That would come ideally from our wing official on that side of the field. The umpire probably is not going to know for sure whether he's eligible or not. All right. Last clip, then we're going to see if there are questions, and if not, we're going to go to dead ball. This should be clip 95, Gregor.
All right, just a second here, Rich. You see it now?
Yep. All right. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of as a deep wing and a back judge is that sometimes you have your key really, really well covered, but then you have a receiver that comes from the opposite side of the field that you need to defend against. And what's going to happen here is one of the receivers at the top of the formation is going to come all the way across the field and is going to challenge our deep wing at the bottom of the screen. Okay, let it run. See, and we get caught. And I understand why it happens. It happened to me. You do such a good job with the people on your side of the field that you fail to recognize that somebody coming from the other side of the field is the one that's going to challenge you and that you don't have enough of a cushion. So what's the solution to that? Well, what you need to do is to make sure that you put the widest threat on your side of the field on your outside eye, the eye closest to the sideline, which then should open up the field so that you'll see a blur coming from the other side of the field and give you a chance to, to move downfield to properly cover everyone in the formation. Back judge does a really nice job, makes up some ground, gets back to the goal line. The deep wing at the bottom didn't do a bad job, but just not as well as we would like that to occur. Because if this ends up challenging the goal line pylon, we really would like to have that deep wing on that pylon to be able to make that decision while he's stationary. So these are all things you have to be aware of. The play ends, you've got to be thinking about clock status, you've got to be thinking about down distance, perhaps substitutions that have come in for Team A. even if it's not on your side of the field, you know that it's likely that you're going to get substitutions from B matching up the personnel that are coming onto the field. That means if you have 2 on, you better have 2 off. Those are things that you got to be aware of. We need to make sure at the snap that we have confirmed with all 3 members of the deep 3 that we're good. We have 11. You know, if we have 10, something like this, if we have 12, usually people will be patting their flag and will be frantically counting one more time to make sure that they have 12. And if you have the benefit of 020 or some intercom system, that would be a time when you would want to use it. When I was still working, sometimes what I would do is to key the mic and say 2 in, 2 out, which meant we've got substitutions coming in from the defense, to make everyone aware that we need to get 2 off. There are just a lot of things that we need to do, but the better prepared we are for a play, the better the chances are that we're going to be successful with it. All right, so first of all, there are questions about pre-snap.
Rich, I don't see anything in the chat or in the Q&A. So if anybody has a question, feel free to unmute and just come on and ask it.
Well, while you're thinking about whether you want to ask a question or not, if you go back to the PowerPoint and you look at that summary page, it gives you a pretty good summation of this whole thing. You know, we need to think about it. We need to talk about it. We need to practice it. And if we do those things, then it will become habitual for us as opposed to something that we occasionally do, as opposed to something we ought to do every play. If you find at the end of a play that you didn't check the clock, say to yourself, I'm not going to make that mistake again. For the rest of the game, I'm going to check that play clock and that game clock every time. Now, in most of our venues, we have a clock at just one end of the field. That becomes a little more complicated. You need to do some crossover work with usually a referee who's going to help you with looking at the clock, because obviously you need to finish plays. We don't want you to turn around and look at the clock behind you while we still have business going on. So there has to be some cooperation and collaboration taking place there. But we ought to be thinking about clock status, whether the clock is at our back or in front of us, so that we certainly know there's going to be a play clock at both ends of the field. So you're going to know that for sure. So there are things to think about. You should talk about this not only with your sideline partner, not only with members of the deep 3, but you should talk about them as a crew. The better job we do preparing for a play, the better chances we are that we will do well with that play. All right, questions? All right, let's jump ahead then to some dead ball stuff. We're going to break this down. There will have a separate segment in a subsequent week where we'll really focus on deep 3 mechanics. I'm just putting pre-snap and dead ball together because if you think of it from the end of a play, you have to finish a play with good dead ball mechanics before you go to pre-snap. All right, so we're going to have a play that's going to end at the top of the screen. And what you're going to see is that this is going to be a low, it's at the bottom of the screen. All right, now, this cleans up pretty quickly, and you can see our deep wing at the bottom of the screen comes up, and again, I guess is in a hurry to get the ball from the player and to relay it to the umpire. We don't need to hurry these kinds of situations. Let this play finish, all right? Maybe you're not sure what's going to happen in that pile, but as soon as you see the player spreading and that it isn't going to be a dangerous situation or an unsporting situation, stop. Even if you're 2/3 of the way, at least stop before you get to this pile. We will get the ball, the short wing will get the ball, and we will get it to the umpire, either directly, maybe the referee will be involved in the relay, maybe you'll be involved as a deep wing getting it to the hash, but we don't need to come up there and basically hand to hand get the ball from the runner. All right, next one. This is going to be a hit near the sideline. at the top of the screen. Now, we're not going to have the benefit of being able to really fully break this down because we can't tell when this contact is going to occur. Now, there are two factors to consider as the deep wing here. The first one would be, is the contact at or near the sideline? Typically, if the runner has both feet down, out of bounds, he is considered to be out of bounds. If he has 1 foot that is still in bounds or even up in the air and he takes a hit at the sideline, we typically recognize that as just football. So that's the first decision we need to make. Is this contact initially at or near the sideline? And it appears to me that it is. Okay, then the second component comes in, because if a player comes in and tries to finish the tackle out of bounds, that would be a clear and second act. And you can see here that the defensive player coming in has contact with this runner who's out of bounds, probably unnecessary. But again, we don't have the benefit of having a better look at it. But those are things we need to think about. He ends up back at the track. Now, that in and of itself does not create a foul. Sometimes the momentum and the speed and the strength of the players just naturally take them that far out of bounds legally. So we're not going to judge this on the basis of where they end up. We're going to judge it again very quickly. Was the runner initially hit legally at or near the sideline? If he has both feet down out of bounds, the guideline would be that he's out of bounds and the hit should not occur. Then the second thought would be, do we have a clear and second act that is performed against the runner? And again, I can't tell you for sure what happens here. I'm suspicious of the second contact that occurs. Looks like to be number 2 lays a lick on this guy that he didn't need to. But those are the factors that we want to illustrate with this clip. All right, next clip, Gregor. This should be 59. All right, this is going to be a play that's going to go to the top of the screen. Not all fouls happen from the defensive player. This runner is going to go out of bounds. We're probably all looking at this dead ball spot. Again, this is a low impact tackle. It's a one-on-one tackle. So deep wings, we'll start with you. There's just nothing going on here. So your vision should be wide at the very most. Your outside eye should be on the tackle, which then opens up your vision back into the field. 84 is going to take a lick from this offensive lineman. We don't get a flag down. This is a foul that we have to get from a game control standpoint. This is one that we cannot miss. Now, back judges, not going to let you off the hook either. All right, now you've probably got some action, probably your key. This guy is going to come downfield. All right, I understand that we had a receiver that went downfield, but we can't become enamored with that player downfield. We have to keep our vision so that we see this coming. Now, referee might have had a piece of this. Wing might have had a piece of this. Umpire could have had a piece of it. But let's just make sure as deep 3 that we recognize that we probably have the best sight lines to pick up these kinds of fouls. And we got to have those kinds of actions with flags down, because we can lose a game or things can go south in a hurry if we don't handle these things. You can see 88 comes over there. He's got a little bit of message there because his teammate got shellacked. All right, what happens if this offensive lineman now takes exception to 88 getting involved? You know, if we don't get the first one, quite often we have other business that we have to deal with either on the play or after the play. Okay, next clip. All right, this is going to be towards the bottom of the screen. And what you're going to see here, quarterback runs and the defense gets frustrated with a running quarterback. It's very, very common. Now, I'm okay initially with the hit. The hit was at the sideline, but what I'm not okay with is slinging him towards the stands. The initial hit at the sideline, if the players go down at that particular point, we're good. Now we get flags down in the bench. That's another aspect. I would say try to keep your flag out in the field. But as you will see, the hit is certainly at the sideline. And if he should let him go at this point, he turns him around. It's the responsibility of that tackler to know where he is. Let's not give him an excuse. Well, he was circling around and he lost track of where he was. Nonsense. That's foul. That's a foul, very correctly handled. Now, the other part of this, we have to be careful, as you will notice if we run that back one more time, we end up with a lot of people. We get pretty excited about this, and I understand why. Quarterback, emotional situation. But you can see we get the referee, we get the umpire, we get the back judge, we get the, let's say, well, let's see, this was first half. So probably the side judge, all involved in this. We got to remember there are other players that are coming, and the people that we need to watch, the pricks with the bricks, are the ones that are coming out of phase. That's where they're going to have a chance to lay a lick on somebody and not get caught at it. And that's where we get a melee. All right. So yes, we need to make sure the play is covered, but when players break, all right, and certainly back judge, I would say to you, I understand why you're moving in that direction. Just remember that there are other players out there we need to keep track of. We don't have umpires on this particular call. I would say a similar situation involving the umpire. All right, next clip. You'll hold it one more second. Well, all right, stop the video for a minute. You'll remember in the PowerPoint, one of the points that was made was that we don't want to have overlaps and we don't want to have gaps. So what we need to figure out as a crew, and part of what we do when we break down video after the fact, is to say, okay, who was looking where? Deep wing, this was a low impact tackle, so we didn't need you on the ball. Were you looking back into the field? Okay, on this particular play, we had players out of bounds. All right, the deep wing needed to help clean that up and get players out of the opponent's bench. Back judge, that meant that you had a wider vision, more people to look at. That's how we get better as a crew, and we avoid missing things that will affect the game and potentially affect how we are evaluated on that game. Okay, next clip. All right, we're going to get a low, go ahead. All right, Gregor, go ahead and run it. All right, we're going to get a low impact tackle out here in the side zone. There's just nothing really going on. And you'll notice that the deep wing does a nice job. He doesn't come up there. He doesn't charge the stage. He recognizes that the players are separating. There's just nothing unusual about that particular play. That's the kind of mechanics that we want to see. All right. This is done really, really well by this deep wing. You'll see that he starts at the limit line and then slowly moves up towards the goal line, but he does not feel compelled to run up and get the ball from the runner. We will get the ball into the umpire and get it spotted correctly. All right, next clip. This is going to be good deep wing recognition of our quarterback running back into the bench. He's going to come up and support the dead ball spot. Now, it's probably fortunate that the runner sort of, he gets pushed, he doesn't lose his feet. There are enough green players over there that essentially hold him up. If he had been knocked on his fanny sideways back towards the line of scrimmage, we might have had a flag down here. So the defense maybe benefits from the number of players that are on the sideline. You can see one guy grabs him and holds him up. I wouldn't say that it's impossible to have a foul on a runner that doesn't go down into the bench. I would say I would use great discretion. It just does not look like that there's impact in a situation like that, unless you have something where a blow is delivered or the guy intentionally goes low to try to take out his feet. I'd foul that action just on the basis of it's very, in fact, might even be considered unsportsmanlike conduct. But in a play like this, don't nitpick the fact that, yeah, the contact was out of bounds, so therefore I'm going to throw the flag. No harm is done. 15 is going to play another play and play another day. All right, next clip. All right, this is going to be a good cushion, which allows the deep wing to properly observe what happens here. Okay, now this sort of morphs into deep wing mechanics, but you're going to have players out of bounds and there's going to be contact and he goes down and they kind of fall into each other. If you have a good cushion, you've got a much better opportunity to see everything that happens here. That's a good job by the deep wing. All right, next clip. Here we're going to have multiple Team B players in on this tackle. Now, our deep wing is going to come up and is going to support this, but he's going to be under control. It's not going to come flying up there like a chicken with his head cut off. See, he's coming in under control, coming in to support the pile, maybe using his voice. That's it, boys, you know, whatever it happens to be. And if something does materialize out of there, then we're ready to handle it. Back judge, same thing. You should be looking not only at the pile, but looking back to your right. In this particular case, as players are pursuing. When we get the tackle, Gregor, just stop for a minute. All right, now you've been watching blocking. All right, now you've got this pile of players. Now you've got 3 defensive players that are still in pursuit. You've got some other offensive players that are around the pile. So we can't be surprised if this lineman coming from the outside lights up this guy in gray on the far side of this pile. All right, that can't come as a surprise to us. But you should all be also be looking back to these players that are about at the 22, 23 yard line, particularly because you have opposite jersey colors. We have a tendency to want to be ball watchers, when actually what we need to be doing is we need to have our eyes on players. All right, next clip. I know this appears to be a potential problem, but as you're going to see, it's going to clear fairly quickly. Okay, you got a couple guys that tackle, but now you can see that number one, he's into his own bench, but number two, the players separate. So there just is not a lot going on there. We don't need to come charging up there. All right, once you see that maybe you thought initially it could be a problem, when you see that it isn't, slow down or maybe even stop. And again, back judges, stop it right now. Stop. I want you to stop when he gets tackled. Do we need the back judge's eyes on that dead ball spot? I hope your answer would be no. The primary person is going to be the short wing. On a secondary basis would be the deep wing. Back judges, you need to be looking back into the field, back along where number 12 is, and maybe even a little bit closer to the hash mark. That's where we need you. If you, I would say to you, put your right eye out there on about number 8, white, which then should open your vision back to these other players that are potentially coming up. so that we keep everyone within our sight lines. We got a couple more clips and then we're going to stop for tonight. All right, this should be number 40, Gregor. All right, we're going to come up as a deep wing and take this spot. And I guess I had this included in the previous clip as a pre-snap. We just want to turn that over to the short wing. All right, last one should be 46. This is going to be a low impact tackle near the line of scrimmage. See, they clear early. But we want to focus on making sure that we're observing players around the pile, around the dead ball spot. You got a number of actions where people are engaged. And trust me, not every game is going to be as friendly as this one.